Jungkook is shocked after hearing Jimin's words. The room becomes quiet. Jungkook freezes when Jimin reveals a buried truth, and the room falls silent under the weight of betrayal and fear. I was the one who hid the letter. The words landed like broken glass. Jungkook stopped breathing for a second. The old wooden chair beneath him creaked as he slowly straightened, his fingers still wrapped around the edge of the table. Across the room, Jimin stood motionless near the window, where rain crawled down the dark pane in silver lines. Thunder murmured far away. The yellow ceiling lamp flickered once, then steadied, casting long shadows over both of them. No one moved. The room, which had moments ago been filled with restless footsteps, hurried questions, and the sound of drawers being opened, became so quiet that Jungkook could hear the ticking clock in the hallway. Tick, tick, tick. He stared at Jimin as if he were a stranger wearing a familiar face. What did you say? Jimin swallowed, his throat moved sharply. He looked exhausted, like someone who had not slept in days. His sweater sleeves were damp from the rain, his hair clinging in soft strands to his forehead, yet his eyes were clear, too clear for this to be a lie made in panic. I hid it, Jimin said again, voice lower now, 3 years ago, before you could read it. Jungkook felt something cold move through his chest. The letter, the one his father had written the night before he disappeared. The letter Jungkook had searched for through every apartment, every storage box, every locked drawer. The letter that had become more myth than object. His mother had sworn she never saw it, the police had dismissed it, friends had avoided the subject, and through all of it, Jimin had stood beside him, helping him search, helping him grieve. Helping him! Jungkook let out a laugh that sounded wrong even to himself. You're joking. I wish I was. Jungkook pushed back his chair so hard it scraped across the floor. He stood abruptly, anger rising faster than thought. Do you understand what you're saying? Jimin's fingers tightened at his sides. Yes. You watched me tear my life apart looking for answers. Yes. You watched me blame myself. Jimin closed his eyes for a moment. Yes. The confession, because it came without defense, made Jungkook even angrier. He crossed the room in 2 strides, stopping inches away. Jimin didn't flinch. Rain tapped against the window behind him. Why? The question came out rough, almost hoarse. Jimin opened his eyes. They were red around the edges, but steady. Because if you had read it then, you would have gone after him. Jungkook frowned. My father. No, Jimin's voice cracked. Your brother. The second silence was worse than the first. Jungkook stepped back as though struck. He had no brother. He had repeated that fact to himself for years. Only child, mother, father, then absence. A family reduced by disappearance and time. There had never been a brother. Jimin looked at him with the unbearable pity of someone holding a knife and knowing it. You did, Jimin whispered. You do. The lamp buzzed overhead. Somewhere outside, tires hissed across wet pavement. Jungkook shook his head once, sharply, as if refusing a physical blow. Stop. I'm sorry. Stop talking. But Jimin continued, because there are truths that become crueler the longer they wait. Your father wrote everything in that letter, about what happened before you were born, about the child he gave away, about the debt he owed, about why he vanished. Jungkook turned away, both hands on his head now, fingers pressing into his hair. The room seemed too small, the air too thin. This had to be some twisted misunderstanding. Yet memories, tiny, useless memories, began surfacing against his will. His mother crying in the kitchen after midnight when she thought he was asleep. His father once saying, some mistakes keep breathing. A photograph torn neatly down the middle in an old album. Jimin refusing, years ago, to help him break into his father's locked study. He spun back around. You knew all this. Not all of it, not at first. How? Jimin hesitated. That hesitation was a wound of its own. How? Jungkook demanded. Because my father was there, Jimin said. Jungkook's anger paused, confused. There where? The night your father disappeared. Jungkook stared. Jimin's face had gone pale. He looked younger suddenly, stripped of the confidence he wore around others. This was the Jimin very few people knew, the one who chewed the inside of his cheek when afraid, who lined up pens by size when anxious, who smiled too brightly when hiding pain. My father worked for him, Jimin continued. Not officially. He handled money, favors, problems that needed to vanish quietly. When things collapsed, he came home covered in blood that wasn't his. Jungkook's stomach twisted. You're lying. I wish I were. Jimin reached slowly into the pocket of his coat and withdrew an envelope, yellowed with age and softened at the corners. Jungkook recognized the handwriting before he consciously understood it. His father's sharp, slanted script. For a moment no one touched it. Then Jungkook snatched it from Jimin's hand. His fingers trembled so badly he could barely open it. Inside was a folded letter and a photograph. He looked at the photograph first. Two boys stood in front of a seaside wall under bright sunlight. One was perhaps 6 years old, serious-faced, with large eyes and dark hair. The other was younger. Jungkook. He knew because children carry their future faces like prophecy. He had no memory of the picture, none. The older boy had an arm around him protectively. On the back, written in blue ink, "For the day you meet again." Jungkook's knees nearly gave out. He sat heavily on the edge of the sofa without meaning to. The room blurred. Jimin remained standing, giving distance but not escape. Jungkook unfolded the letter. The paper smelled faintly of dust and cedar. He read in silence. My son, if this reaches you, then I have failed in every way a father can fail. There are truths I buried because I believed silence could protect you. It cannot. Before you were born, I made choices out of fear and greed. I owed dangerous men more than money. To pay part of that debt, I surrendered what should never be bargained, blood. Your brother was taken into another household under another name. I told myself he would be safer. I told myself many lies. When I tried to bring him back, they reminded me debts grow teeth. If I disappear, know this, I am going to find him or die trying. Do not follow me. Forgive me if you can. Father. Jungkook read the final line 3 times before the words lost shape. The rain outside had softened to a whisper. He lowered the letter slowly. All the anger remained, but now it had nowhere clean to land. It mixed with grief, confusion, betrayal, and the sickening sensation that his life had been built on missing flaws. He looked at Jimin. You kept this from me. Yes. For 3 years. Yes. Why tell me now? Jimin's composure finally cracked. He dragged a hand over his face, voice shaking. Because they found me. Jungkook went still. Who? The men your father owed. Jimin looked toward the door as though expecting it to open. I thought the past was buried. It is. They know the letter exists. They know I had it. And now they're asking where you are. The fear in his voice was real, too real to perform. Jungkook stood again, slower this time. 1,000 questions crowded his throat, but one rose above the rest. My brother, he said, do you know who he is? Jimin nodded once. The world narrowed to that movement. Yes, Jimin whispered, and he knows who you are. Jungkook's heart pounded so hard it hurt. Then why hasn't he come? Jimin looked at him with sorrow, so deep it almost answered before he spoke. Because he was the one who sent them. Jungkook did not speak for a long time. He walked to the window and stared into the wet street below, where headlights smeared gold across the pavement. His reflection in the glass looked unfamiliar, older, harder, hollowed by truths he had never requested. Behind him, Jimin remained silent, perhaps knowing apologies had limits. At last Jungkook said quietly, you should have trusted me. I know. You should have told me when it could still hurt less. I know. Jungkook closed his eyes. The tragedy of some betrayals is not that they come from enemies, but that they come from people who loved you badly. When he turned around, his anger had cooled into something sharper. From this moment, he said, voice calm and dangerous, no more lies. Jimin nodded. No more half-truths. Yes. No protecting me from my own life. Jimin's eyes filled, but he held his gaze. I promise. Jungkook folded the letter carefully and slipped it into his jacket pocket over his heart. Then he took his keys from the table. "Where are you going?" Jimin asked. "To meet my brother." Outside, the rain had stopped, but the city still smelled of storm. Jungkook drove through the city like a man trying to outrun his own pulse. The windshield wipers slashed left and right, clearing rain that returned a second later. Neon signs bled across the wet roads. Motorcycles darted between lanes like shadows. Jimin sat in the passenger seat with both hands clasped so tightly his knuckles had turned white. Neither of them had spoken for 10 minutes. The silence was not empty, it was loaded, volatile, breathing between them. Finally, Jungkook spoke without looking at him. "If you lie to me one more time, get out of the car while it's moving." Jimin exhaled slowly. "I'm not planning to lie anymore." "That's what liars say right before they lie again." "I deserve that." "You deserve worse." Jimin accepted the words like punishment he had rehearsed receiving. Jungkook's jaw tightened. He hated that. He hated how calm Jimin could be when everything inside Jungkook was burning. "Say his name." Jimin looked at him. "What?" "My brother, say his name." A beat passed. "It's Minu." The name struck strangely. It sounded ordinary, too ordinary for something that had shattered his life. "Minu," Jungkook repeated bitterly. "All these years, my missing bloodline had a normal name." "He changed it later." "Of course he did. He goes by Kang Minu now." Jungkook's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "And where exactly am I meeting this miracle of family reunion?" Jimin hesitated. Jungkook laughed coldly. "Amazing, you're hesitating already." "He owns a private club near the river." "A club? It's more than a club. It's illegal." "Yes." "Violent." "Yes." "Dangerous." Jimin looked straight ahead. "Very." Jungkook accelerated. "Then we're going to the right place." "Jungkook, listen to me." "No. You think you're angry now, but when you see him." "When I see him what? I'll suddenly forgive 20 years of silence." "You don't understand what he became." Jungkook snapped his head toward him, then explain it. Jimin's voice lowered. "He was raised by the men your father feared." The engine hummed beneath them. "They taught him loyalty through pain," Jimin continued. "Power through cruelty. If he cried, they hit him. If he fought back, they praised him. If he won, they rewarded him. He grew up believing love is something you earn by surviving." Jungkook stared forward again. "And yet he sent men after me." "Yes. So save me the sympathy speech." Jimin's voice sharpened unexpectedly. "I'm not defending him." The force of it made Jungkook glance over. Jimin rarely raised his voice. When he did, it meant something had broken. "I'm trying to stop you from walking in there thinking this is simple," Jimin said. "You want a villain because villains are easier than wounded people." Jungkook braked hard at a red light. Cars behind them honked. He turned fully toward Jimin. "You don't get to lecture me about wounds." Jimin met his eyes. "No, I don't." The light changed. Jungkook drove again, faster. They reached the river district just after midnight. Old warehouses lined the water, converted into bars, art spaces, gambling dens hidden behind polished doors. Music throbbed somewhere in the distance. Men in expensive coats smoked under awnings. Laughter drifted over the damp air like something fake. Jimin pointed to a black building with no sign. There. Two men in dark suits stood outside the entrance. Jungkook parked. Before he opened the door, Jimin grabbed his wrist. "Wait." Jungkook looked down at Jimin's hand, then at his face. "What?" "If things go wrong, don't try to be brave." Jungkook yanked free, too late. He stepped into the cold night. The guards blocked the entrance immediately. Private venue. Jungkook didn't slow down. "Tell Minu his brother is here." The taller guard frowned. "You should leave." Jungkook's fist landed before the sentence finished. The man stumbled sideways into the wall. The second lunged, but Jungkook drove an elbow into his ribs and shoved him back. Doors burst open from inside as more men rushed forward. Stop! The voice cut through everything. A man emerged from the darkness of the hallway. Tall, broad shoulders, black coat open at the throat, a scar near his eyebrow, calm eyes that looked far older than his face. Jungkook's breath caught. It was like seeing his own features rewritten by harsher weather. Same eyes, same mouth, different life. The man studied him slowly. Then he smiled once without warmth. You took longer than I expected. Jimin had gone pale behind Jungkook. Minu, he said. Minu's gaze shifted to Jimin. There you are, he said softly. You've been difficult to find. Jimin stepped back. Jungkook moved between them. You wanted me, I'm here. Minu looked amused and dramatic. You sent men after me. I sent men after the letter. You threatened Jimin. Minu's eyes flicked toward Jimin again. I asked questions, he panicked. Jimin laughed bitterly. You broke 2 of my ribs. Minu shrugged. You bruise easily. Jungkook surged forward, but Minu's guards instantly moved. Minu raised a finger. They stopped. He looked at Jungkook with unsettling curiosity. You really are impulsive. And you really are trash. The guards tensed. Minu smiled wider. There he is, my brother. I'm not your anything. That's disappointing. I've been curious about you for years. Jungkook's voice rose. Curious, you knew I existed and did nothing. Minu's expression changed almost imperceptibly. It's wrong. He stepped closer. I watched from a distance. School graduations, your first apartment, the funeral. Jungkook froze. My mother's funeral. Yes. You were there. Minu nodded. You wore black. You cried once in the parking lot where no one could see. Jungkook's stomach turned. You psychopath. No, Minu said quietly, just a coward. The music inside pulsed like a heartbeat. Jungkook struggled to understand whether to hit him or stare. Why never come to me? Minu's jaw flexed. Because when I was 18, I tried. Jungkook frowned. I found our father first. The air seemed to sharpen. What? Minu's eyes darkened. He was hiding in Busan under another name. I went there with a gun and 20 years of questions. Jimin whispered, Minu. Minu ignored him. I expected a monster. I found a broken man who cried when he saw me. Jungkook could barely speak. Where is he? Minu held his gaze. Dead. Jimin closed his eyes. Jungkook staggered back a step. No. Yes. You killed him. Minu's silence answered too much. Jungkook roared and lunged. This time Minu met him head-on. They crashed into a table, bottles shattering. Guards moved, but Minu barked, no one touches him. Jungkook punched his jaw. Minu answered with a blow to the ribs. Jungkook slammed him into a pillar. Minu drove a knee into Jungkook's stomach. They fought like men who shared blood but no mercy. Jimin shouted for them to stop. Neither listened. Jungkook grabbed Minu's coat and snarled into his face. You murdered him. Minu, bleeding from the lip, snarled back louder. He begged me to. Everything stopped. Jungkook's fist hovered midair. Minu shoved him away. Breathing hard, he wiped blood from his mouth. He was dying already, liver gone, lungs ruined, fear had eaten the rest. Jungkook stared, chest heaving. You're lying. I wish I were. Minu laughed once, ugly and empty. He asked me to forgive him, then asked me to find you. Imagine the arrogance. Jimin's voice trembled. Why didn't you tell him? Because I hated him. Minu looked at Jungkook, and because I hated you. Jungkook swallowed hard. You didn't know me. Exactly, you got the clean life, the school photos, the birthday cakes, the mother who held you. I got cages dressed as houses. Jungkook fired back instantly. You think my life was clean. He disappeared. My mother died waiting. I grew up with debt collectors at the door and rumors in every room. Minu's anger flickered into something like surprise. For the first time, they were not enemies speaking, but mirrors accusing each other of different pain. Jimin stepped between them. Enough. Both men glared at him. Jimin's voice broke. You two are doing exactly what they wanted. Minu scoffed, and what do you know about what they wanted? Jimin turned on him with sudden fury. I know my father helped ruin both of your lives. The room fell silent. Even the guards looked away. Jimin's eyes filled with tears he didn't wipe. He delivered papers, he moved money, he arranged the transfer when Minu was taken. He helped hide your father when things collapsed. He lied to everyone and called it survival. Minu stared. Jungkook stared harder. Jimin laughed shakily. You think I kept the letter only to protect Jungkook? I kept it because if he read it, he'd discover my family helped destroy his. Jungkook felt the floor tilt. So all this time, he whispered. Jimin nodded, crying openly now. Yes, I loved you and lied to you every day. The confession landed deeper than any punch. Minu watched them with unreadable eyes. Then he said quietly, there's more. Jimin went still. Minu reached into his coat and tossed a thin folder onto the floor between them. Photos spilled out. Recent surveillance photos. Jungkook leaving work. Jimin entering his apartment. Jimin meeting an older man in secret. Jimin handing over envelopes. Jungkook looked from the photos to Jimin. No. Jimin's face drained of color. Jungkook. Minu's voice was ice. Tell him who you've been paying. Jimin shook his head. Tell him. Jimin whispered, my father. Jungkook felt physically ill. He's alive, Jungkook said. Jimin nodded once. He's in hiding. And you've been helping him. He said if I stopped, he'd expose everything. He said he'd come after you. Jungkook stepped backward from Jimin as if from fire. So while I trusted you, I was trying to keep you safe. You don't get to use that sentence anymore. His shout echoed through the club. Jimin flinched. Minu looked almost satisfied, but there was sadness beneath it. We're all sons of cowards, he said. Jungkook's chest rose and fell violently. He looked at Minu. Take me to your father's killer. Minu smirked faintly, that would be me. Jungkook's eyes burned. Then he looked at Jimin. Take me to yours. Jimin whispered, shattered, I don't know if I can. Jungkook's voice turned colder than either of theirs. Then tonight choose, him or me, looked at Jungkook as though the question had cut straight through bone. Around them, the private club had gone unnaturally still. Music still throbbed from a distant room, but here, in the entrance hall of polished concrete and shattered glass, silence stood taller than any guard. Choose, Jungkook repeated. His voice was not loud, it was worse than loud. Jimin's lips parted, but nothing came out. Minu leaned against the pillar Jungkook had slammed him into moments ago, blood drying at the corner of his mouth. He watched the scene with the calm of a man who had lived too long among disasters. This is cruel even for you, Jimin said finally, eyes fixed on Jungkook. You taught me, Jungkook answered. Jimin recoiled as if struck. That's not fair. No, Jungkook said, fair would have been truth 3 years ago. Jimin swallowed hard, if I choose you, my father runs. If you choose him, you lose me. Jimin's breathing turned shallow. Minu laughed under his breath, family reunions are overrated. Jungkook shot him a look sharp enough to slice skin, stay out of this. Minu's expression darkened instantly, careful, you're still standing in my house. This place smells like rented power. Several guards shifted angrily. Minu raised a hand without taking his eyes off Jungkook. You really do have our father's mouths, Minu murmured. And you have his cowardice. That landed. Minu moved before anyone expected it. He crossed the distance fast and grabbed Jungkook by the collar, slamming him against the wall. The guards tensed again. Jimin shouted, "Stop." Minu's face was inches away. "Say whatever you want about me," he said quietly, dangerously, "but never compare me to him." Jungkook, pinned and breathing hard, smiled with pure contempt. "Then stop acting like a man who lets pain choose his personality." Minu's grip tightened. For one electric second it looked like he might break Jungkook's jaw. Then he released him abruptly and stepped back. "Interesting," Minu said. "You're either brave or stupid." "Usually both." Jimin stepped between them again, voice trembling with fury now. "Enough, both of you keep talking about fathers like children, still begging for approval." That stunned even Minu. Jimin's tears were gone. In their place was something rawer. "You," he pointed at Minu, "turned your trauma into a throne." Then he turned to Jungkook. "And you turned yours into righteousness." Jungkook stared. "Excuse me." "You think being betrayed makes you morally pure?" Jimin snapped. "It doesn't, it just makes you hurt." Jungkook's face hardened. "You don't get to psychoanalyze me after lying to my face." "No, I get to tell the truth now, whether you hate it or not." The words rang through the room. Minu folded his arms, almost entertained now. Jimin stepped closer to Jungkook, voice shaking. "You punish everyone before they can leave you." Jungkook blinked once. "What?" "You keep score in silence. You act generous, but you remember every wound. You test people until they fail, then call it proof." Jungkook's jaw clenched. "Keep talking." "I am," Jimin said, tears threatening again, "because I loved you long enough to know the parts you hide." Minu's amusement vanished. He studied Jimin with new attention. Jungkook laughed once hollow. "Loved?" Jimin froze. The word had escaped before he could protect it. The room seemed to contract around the sound. Jungkook stared at him. "What did you say?" Jimin looked down. Minu straightened slowly. "Oh," Minu said softly, "now this gets honest." Jimin's voice dropped to a whisper. "I said what you heard." Jungkook took a step back, confusion mixing with anger. "You loved me?" "Yes." "For how long?" Jimin's eyes shone. "Long enough to know the way you knock twice on any table when anxious. Long enough to know you hum when reading. Long enough to know you only smile with your whole face when you forget to guard yourself." Jungkook said nothing. "I didn't plan it," Jimin continued, "and I knew I had no right to feel it, not with what I was hiding." Minu looked between them and scoffed. "This is pathetic." Jimin turned on him instantly. "At least I can feel something." The insult landed harder than fists. Minu's eyes became glacial. "You think I care? I think you buried yourself so deep you mistake numbness for strength." Minu moved again, but this time Jungkook blocked him. Their shoulders collided. "Touch him and I break your teeth," Jungkook said. The sentence surprised everyone, including himself. Jimin stared at him. Minu's gaze sharpened. "There you are," Minu murmured, protecting the liar. "I'm stopping the animal." Minu smirked, same blood, different cage. A phone began ringing. No one moved at first. The sound came from Jimin's coat pocket. Jimin went pale. Jungkook noticed immediately. "Who is it?" Jimin didn't answer. "Who is it?" Hands trembling, Jimin took out the phone. The screen showed only one word. "Father." Minu smiled without humor, perfect timing. Jungkook held out his hand. "Give it to me." Jimin hesitated. "Give it to me." He handed over the phone. Jungkook answered and put it on speaker. For a second there was only static. Then an older man's voice, smooth and calm. "Jimin, you took too long." Jimin shut his eyes. Jungkook spoke. "This is Jimin." A pause. Then the man chuckled softly. Jungkook. Every muscle in Jungkook's body locked. You know my voice. I know many things about you. Jungkook's hatred arrived instantly and whole. You ruined my family. No, the man replied. Your father did that himself, I simply profited. Minu muttered, still arrogant. The voice continued. I assume you're with my son and yours. Jungkook frowned. What? Jimin's head snapped up in terror. Don't, he whispered. The man ignored him. Yes, he said pleasantly. Minu, if you're listening, I always admired your efficiency. Minu's face changed. Slowly, dangerously. What did you just say? Jungkook looked at him, then at Jimin. Jimin was crying again, shaking his head over and over. The older man sighed. Secrets are exhausting. Fine, let us end this. Minu, I am your father. The room detonated into silence. No one breathed. Minu did not move at all. Jungkook felt his own heartbeat stumble. Jimin whispered, I'm sorry. Minu's voice came out flat, almost mechanical. No. The man on the phone continued calmly. Your mother died during childbirth. Your father sold you, yes, but he was not your father by blood. I was. Minu's eyes became empty in a terrifying way. You're lying. Am I? Asked Jimin. He found the records years ago. Jungkook turned to Jimin. Jimin couldn't lift his head. It's true, he whispered. Minu staggered one step backward, as if the floor had shifted. All his life he had built himself from hatred toward one man. Now even that foundation was gone. The older man's voice sharpened. Listen carefully, I have no interest in sentiment. Bring me the letter and the 2 boys, or I release everything to the police and to the syndicate remnants who still miss their money. You used me, Minu said. I raised you. You used me. I improved you. Minu let out a sound that was half laugh, half wound. Jungkook had never seen someone look so furious and so lost at once. The man continued. River Docks, Warehouse 19, 1 hour. The line went dead. No one moved. Then Minu exploded. He hurled a glass table across the room. It shattered against the wall. Guards backed away instinctively. All of you out, he roared. They scattered immediately. Another vase crashed, then a chair. Jimin flinched at every impact. Jungkook stepped forward carefully. It's Minu. Don't say my name. It's still your name. Minu rounded on him, eyes blazing. You know nothing. I know what it feels like to have your life rewritten in one sentence. Minu laughed bitterly. No, you had love first, I had transactions. Jungkook held his gaze. And yet we are both here. Minu's chest heaved. Jimin spoke quietly, he's manipulating all of us. Minu snapped toward him, you knew. Yes. It's how long? 2 years. Minu went very still. You knew he was my father for 2 years. I wanted to tell you. But, Jimin cried openly now, I was afraid of what you'd become if you knew. Minu's smile was terrifying. You mean honest? Jimin shook his head, I mean unstoppable. For a moment Jungkook thought Minu might kill him. Instead Minu turned away and gripped the back of a sofa until the wood cracked. When he spoke again, his voice was low and wrecked. All my life I wanted one face to blame. No one answered. It made surviving simple. He looked over his shoulder. What am I supposed to do with this now? Jungkook surprised himself by answering softly. Same thing I'm doing. Minu frowned. What's that? Keep breathing until the next truth. The brothers stared at each other. Something shifted, not trust, not forgiveness. Recognition. Jimin wiped his face. We don't have an hour. Minu straightened slowly. No more rage on his face now. Something colder. More focused. Warehouse 19, he said. Jungkook nodded. We go together. Minu looked at him. You order fast for someone new to family. I'm not asking. A beat passed. Then Minu smirked faintly. There you are. Jimin stepped closer. I'm coming too. Both men answered at once. No. Jimin glared through tears. I am done obeying men who think damage makes them kings. Minu raised an eyebrow. Jungkook almost smiled despite everything. Then Minu's phone buzzed. He checked the message. His face changed immediately. What? He turned the screen toward them. A photo. Jimin's apartment. Door broken open. Inside, blood smeared across the wall. And written in it. You are late for 3 full seconds. No one spoke. The photo on Minu's phone glowed like a wound in the darkroom. Jimin's apartment door hung from one hinge. The hallway floor was streaked red. On the wall, written in blood with broad, deliberate strokes. You are late. Jimin's hand flew to his mouth. No. Jungkook snatched the phone and stared harder, as if detail could undo reality. The lamp by the entrance was overturned. The bookshelf near the kitchen had collapsed. A framed picture lay shattered near the couch. He knew that picture. He had taken it. Jimin, laughing in sunlight, holding coffee with both hands because it was too hot. Something vicious moved through Jungkook's chest. When was this sent? 30 seconds ago, Minu said. Who has access to your cameras? Only me. Then they're inside your system. They've been inside longer than that. Minu's voice was calm, but too calm. The kind of calm that comes when anger has become functional. Jimin grabbed the phone back, fingers trembling. There could be someone inside. There was someone inside, Minu corrected. This is a message, not a burglary. Jimin looked like he might collapse. My father knows where I live. No, Minu said. He wants you to think he found you. There's a difference. Jungkook stepped closer to Jimin. What's in your apartment? Jimin blinked. What? What matters? Documents, drives, anything hidden. Jimin hesitated. Jungkook's expression darkened instantly. We are not doing hesitation anymore. Jimin swallowed. There's a storage compartment under the kitchen floor. Minu laughed once, cold and sharp. Of course there is. Jungkook stared at Jimin. What's in it? Copies of transfers, old ledgers, names, payments linked to my father and your father, and he looked down, a recording. Minu narrowed his eyes. What recording? Jimin's voice dropped. The night Jungkook's father disappeared. The room changed temperature. Jungkook took one step forward. You had that. I found it 6 months ago. You had that, Jungkook shouted. Jimin flinched. I didn't know if it was real. You didn't know if my father's last night was real. I was trying to verify it. For 6 months. Jimin's eyes filled. I was trying to survive 6 months. Minu watched them with unreadable contempt. This is exhausting, he said. If we're done with betrayal theater, we move now. Jungkook never looked away from Jimin. Get in the car. The drive to Jimin's apartment was louder than gunfire despite no one speaking. Rain began again, fine and cold, misting the windshield. The city blurred into wet reflections. Jungkook drove with both hands locked on the wheel. Jimin sat rigid beside him. Minu in the back seat leaned forward slightly, eyes tracking every street they passed. At a red light, Minu suddenly said, "Take the next right." Jungkook didn't move. I know this city better than you. Take the next right. You also know betrayal better than me. I'll choose my own turns. Minu smirked, temper. Jungkook hit the gas instead. Jimin spoke quietly. He's right. Jungkook glared at him. You don't get a vote tonight. Then listen anyway. Main road is obvious. If your father wanted us nervous, he'd also want us predictable. Jungkook's jaw flexed. He took the right turn. Minu smiled faintly in the back seat. Good, you can learn. Say one more thing, Jungkook muttered, and I'll leave you in traffic. You threaten like a younger sibling already. Jungkook braked so hard all three lurched forward. Minu laughed for real this time. The sound was startlingly human. Jimin looked between them in disbelief. This is what you choose to do right now? Yes, both men answered. They reached Jimin's apartment building 10 minutes later. The lobby lights flickered, the night guard's desk was empty. Jimin froze. Mr. Han is always here. Minu's hand moved inside his coat. Jungkook noticed, gun. Yes. Give it to me. No. You trust yourself more than me. Infinitely. Jungkook stepped closer, give me the gun. Minu tilted his head, ask politely. Jungkook lunged for him. In one fluid motion Minu twisted his wrist, pinned him against the wall, and pressed the gun into Jungkook's ribs. Jimin shouted, stop. Minu leaned close to Jungkook's ear. You're strong, he murmured, but sloppy when emotional. Then he released him and tucked the gun away again. Jungkook shoved him back. One day. I look forward to it. Jimin stormed toward the elevator. If you two are finished measuring damage, my home was invaded. They followed. The elevator ride was suffocating. On the 12th floor, the hallway smelled metallic. Blood. Jimin slowed. The door to apartment 1207 hung open exactly as in the photo. Jungkook moved in front of him. No, it's my home. And if there's someone inside, then I'd rather meet them standing. Minu gave Jimin a long look. You're weaker than us, he said. Jimin glared and still braver. Minu's expression flickered. He almost smiled. They entered. The apartment was wrecked. Cushions gutted, cabinets ripped open, plates shattered, books torn apart, the soft lamp in the corner crushed under a boot print. Jungkook recognized dozens of details, and hated that recognition suddenly felt intimate. He knew where Jimin kept tea, where he dropped keys, which blanket he used when anxious. All of it violated. Jimin stood motionless in the center of the room, breathing hard. They touched everything. Minu scanned quickly. No random vandalism, they searched with purpose. Jungkook pointed, kitchen. They rushed there. Jimin dropped to his knees by a tile near the sink and pried it up with shaking fingers. Beneath was a narrow compartment. Empty. Jimin stared into it as if refusing reality. No. Minu crouched beside him. Anything else? There was a flash drive. Cache the recording. All gone. Jimin punched the floor once. Damn it. Jungkook knelt too. Think, did you copy anything? Jimin shook his head violently. No, I was going to tomorrow. Tomorrow is a cemetery full of plans, Minu said. Jimin rounded on him. Do you enjoy being cruel? No, I enjoy accuracy. Jimin stood abruptly. You know what, maybe your father was right to abandon you. The room froze. Even Jimin looked shocked at his own words. Minu went still in a way that was more frightening than anger. Jungkook stepped between them instantly. Take it back. Jimin covered his mouth. Take it back. Minu's voice was soft now. No, let him finish. Jimin's face crumpled. I didn't mean. Mean it, Minu said, or apologize. Cowards love the space between. Jimin burst into tears. I'm sorry. Minu looked away. Something in his eyes had closed. Jungkook turned on Jimin. What is wrong with you? Jimin shouted back through tears. I'm tired, I'm terrified, I'm losing everything. You're not the only one. I know. Then stop making yourself the center of every disaster. Jimin recoiled. The words hung there, brutal and immediate. Jungkook regretted them at once. Jimin laughed shakily, devastated. There he is. What? The version of you who only speaks honestly when angry. Jungkook's voice lowered. I didn't mean it or apologize, Jimin asked bitterly. Minu gave a short, humorless laugh. Now you're learning from me. Before Jungkook could answer, a slow clap came from the hallway. All three spun around. An older man stood in the doorway. Expensive coat, silver hair, elegant posture, a faceline not by age but by the habit of smiling without warmth. Two armed men stood behind him. Jimin's knees nearly buckled. Father. The man nodded pleasantly. Hello, son. Jungkook's blood turned to ice. The man's eyes moved to Minu. You have my jawline, unfortunate. Minu's hand reached for his gun. The older man smiled wider. Try it, my men fire first, 1 bullet for each son. Jungkook stepped forward. You came alone. Never insult me with hope. His gaze slid to Jungkook. And you, the sentimental one. Jungkook clenched his fists. You destroyed us. The man shrugged. Families are self-destructive. I merely invest in opportunities. Jimin whispered, horrified, how can you talk like this? His father glanced at him almost lazily. Because emotion is expensive. Jimin's tears returned. I'm your son. You were leverage first. That landed like a gunshot. Jimin made a broken sound. Minu's face became murderous. Jungkook took 1 step toward the older man. You came for the letter. I came for efficiency. Give me the original and whatever copies remain. We don't have them. I know, he smiled. I already searched. Jungkook frowned. Then why are you here? The man's expression sharpened. To collect what's more valuable. He raised 1 finger. His men lifted their weapons. Which one of you would the others bleed for most? He asked softly. That answer interests me. No, Jimin shouted. His father looked at him with annoyance. You're trembling, disappointing. Jimin straightened suddenly. Something changed in him. Years of fear hardened into rage. I'm trembling, Jimin said, voice shaking but loud, because if I move too fast, I might kill you before they can. The room went silent. His father blinked once. Then laughed. There you are. Jimin walked toward him. Minu hissed, don't. Jungkook reached out, Jimin. But Jimin kept walking until the barrel of a guard's gun touched his chest. He looked only at his father. All my life, Jimin said, I thought I was weak because I was afraid of you. His father tilted his head. And I was wrong. He smiled through tears. I was strong because I survived you. Then Jimin grabbed the guard's wrist and yanked the gun sideways. The shot exploded through the apartment ceiling. Everything erupted, the gunshot tore through the ceiling, and the room detonated into chaos. Plaster rained down, smoke burned the air. One of the guards cursed and stumbled sideways as Jimin twisted his wrist with surprising force, dragging the weapon downward. Another shot blasted into the kitchen cabinets, splintering wood. Jungkook moved first. He slammed into the second guard's shoulder first, driving him backward into the dining table hard enough to break it in half. Glass shattered across the floor. The guard swung the butt of his gun wildly, catching Jungkook across the temple. White light burst behind his eyes, but he didn't stop. He grabbed the man's throat and hammered him into the wall. Minu was faster than violence itself. He drew his pistol, fired once into the lamp to kill the light, and crossed the room in darkness. The apartment plunged into flickering shadows from the hallway. Someone screamed. Another body hit the floor. Jimin wrestled with the first guard, both hands on the gun now, the barrel jerking between them. His father stepped back immediately, calm even in the madness, coat untouched. Pathetic, the older man said. Jimin roared and headbutted the guard in the nose. Blood sprayed, the weapon slipped loose. Before Jimin could grab it, his father kicked it under the couch. Then he struck Jimin across the face, so hard Jimin crashed into the counter. Jungkook saw red. He charged straight at the older man, but Minu caught him mid-step and shoved him aside as another shot cracked through the dark. Idiot, Minu barked, move with your eyes open. I had him. You had death. Minu fired again. The muzzle flash illuminated the room for a split second. One guard collapsed, clutching his shoulder. The other lunged at Minu with a knife. Minu sidestepped, seized the man's wrist, and snapped it backward with a sickening crack. The knife clattered away. Then Minu drove the man face first into the refrigerator door. The older man sighed as if bored. This is why I dislike reunions. He pulled a smaller handgun from inside his coat. Jungkook saw it first. It's Minu. Too late. The shot rang out. Minu jerked backward, slammed into the wall, and slid down to one knee. Jimin screamed, no. Blood spread dark across Minu's side. The older man aimed again. Jungkook hurled a chair. It struck the man's arm, sending the second bullet into the ceiling. Jungkook closed the distance and tackled him into the broken coffee table. They crashed through wood and glass. The handgun skidded away. For the first time, the older man looked genuinely annoyed. You have your father's recklessness. Jungkook punched him once. And you have no right to say his name. He punched him again. The man smiled through blood. There he is. Then he drove two fingers viciously into Jungkook's injured temple. Pain exploded. Jungkook reeled. The older man shoved him off and rose smoothly despite his age. Jimin crawled toward the gun under the couch. His father noticed. He stepped on Jimin's hand. Bones ground against hardwood. Jimin cried out. You always did reach for things above your station, the man said. Jungkook staggered upright. Get off him. The older man ignored him and pressed harder. Jimin's face twisted in agony. Minu, pale and bleeding, lifted his own pistol with trembling hands. His father turned and saw him. For one long second, father and son faced each other across the wrecked apartment. You won't shoot me, the older man said. Minu's voice was thin with pain. You've mistaken history for protection. He pulled the trigger. Click. Empty. The older man laughed. I taught you to count bullets. Then Jimin moved. With his free hand, he grabbed a shard of broken glass and drove it into his father's calf. The man shouted for the first time in anyone's memory. His foot came off Jimin's hand. Jungkook lunged and tackled him again, smashing him into the kitchen island. Minu forced himself up, clutching his side. Move, he said. Jungkook stepped away. Minu struck the older man once in the stomach, once in the jaw, then again in the throat. Years of buried hatred came out clean and efficient. The man collapsed to one knee, coughing blood. Jimin stared at Minu like he was seeing myth become flesh. Minu pointed at him. Tape drawer. Jimin blinked. What? Kitchen drawer, move. Jimin yanked open drawers with his good hand until he found duct tape. Minu shoved the older man face first to the floor. Hands behind. The man laughed weakly. You think ropes hold fathers? Minu knelt beside him. No, but they hold old men. He bound his wrists brutally tight. Jungkook leaned against the wall, breathing hard blood running down the side of his face. The apartment smelled of smoke, sweat, blood, and wet concrete from the open door. Jimin crawled to Minu's side. You're bleeding badly. Minu looked down at the wound with detached irritation. Yes. We need a hospital. No hospitals. You've been shot. And I dislike paperwork. Jungkook almost laughed despite everything. You are insane. Minu glanced at him, you noticed late. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Jimin froze. Neighbors called the police. Minu cursed under his breath. The older man, tied on the floor, smiled through swollen lips. Good, let them come, I have names they'll enjoy. Jimin looked sick. Jungkook crouched in front of him. What names? The older man's eyes glittered. Your father's, mine, judges, officers, idols, men you admire, men who admired me more. Jungkook's stomach turned. You're bluffing. Try me. Minu kicked him in the ribs. Speak less. The older man coughed, then chuckled. You still crave my approval, even now. Minu's face emptied of all expression. That frightened everyone more than his rage. He pressed the muzzle of his empty gun to the man's forehead anyway. I crave silence. Jimin grabbed Minu's wrist. No. Minu didn't look at him. Remove your hand. No. He deserves worse. Yes, Jimin said, tears returning, but if you become him to destroy him, he wins twice. Minu finally looked at Jimin. Their faces were inches apart. You think morality survives men like this? Jimin's voice shook. No, I think we do. Something unreadable passed through Minu's eyes. Then he lowered the gun. Jungkook exhaled slowly. Sirens were closer now. Blue light flashed faintly through the window. We need to go, Jungkook said. With him, Jimin added. Minu shook his head. Too risky. We can't leave him. We absolutely can. Jimin stared, he'll escape. Minu looked down at the tied man. No. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small metal device with a blinking red light. Jungkook frowned. What is that? Insurance. The older man's smile vanished. Minu placed the device beside him on the floor. Recognition hit the older man instantly. You dramatic bastard. Jimin stepped back. What is it? Minu stood slowly, one hand pressing his wound. An old warehouse timer connected to enough explosive powder to remove his confidence. Jungkook's eyes widened. You brought a bomb. I brought options. You're insane. I thought we covered this. The older man strained against the tape. You won't do it. Minu crouched beside him one last time. No, he said softly, but you don't know that. Then he set the timer for 3 minutes. Jimin grabbed Jungkook's sleeve. Move. They rushed into the hallway. Minu followed slower, blood trailing behind him. Jungkook doubled back and caught his arm. I'm not carrying you because I care. Minu smirked weakly. Liar. They stumbled into the elevator. Jimin hit the lobby button repeatedly. Hurry. From the apartment came the older man's muffled, shouting for the first time edged with fear. The elevator doors closed. As they descended, all 3 men stood breathing hard in the mirrored box. They looked wrecked. Bloodied faces, torn clothes, eyes altered by what had happened. Jimin suddenly began laughing through tears. Jungkook stared at him. Have you lost your mind? Probably, Jimin said. I just attacked my father, watched a bomb get planted, and I'm in an elevator with 2 brothers who insult each other like flirting. Silent. Then Jungkook said, I hate you. Minu muttered, that did sound like flirting. Jungkook glared at both of them. The elevator opened. They ran through the lobby and out into the rain. 30 seconds later, the 12th floor windows burst outward with a deafening boom. Glass rained into the street. People screamed. Cars swerved. Fire alarms began shrieking through the building. Jimin turned back in horror. My apartment was ugly anyway, Minu said. Jimin stared at him. You are unbelievable. Minu swayed, then collapsed. Jungkook caught him before he hit the pavement. Blood soaked through his shirt fast now. Jimin dropped to his knees beside them. We need help now. Minu's eyes fluttered open. No hospitals. You're dying. Overdramatic. Jungkook gripped his shoulder. Stay awake. Minu looked at him lazily. You sound worried. I'm deciding whether to let go. Still family. Then his eyes rolled back. Jimin looked up in panic. What do we do? Jungkook looked at the burning building, the gathering crowd, the flashing police lights approaching from every direction. Then at the unconscious brother in his arms. Then at Jimin shaking in the rain. He made the only choice left. We disappear. Rain hammered the streets as Jungkook dragged Minu's arm over his shoulder and forced him toward the alley behind the apartment building. Police sirens screamed from the main road. People shouted. Phones were already raised, recording flames licking from the 12th floor windows. The city had become witness. Move, Jungkook barked. I am moving, Jimin shot back, half running beside them. You're carrying a mountain. Minu, half conscious, muttered, insult me again and I'll recover out of spite. You're bleeding on my shoes, Jimin snapped. Then be grateful, they needed character. Jungkook gritted his teeth. If either of you keeps talking, I'll leave both of you here. They turned into a narrow service alley lined with dripping pipes and trash bins. A black SUV sat beneath a broken street lamp. Minu's eyes opened a fraction. Keys left pocket. Jungkook searched him roughly and found them. You trust me with your car? I trust no one, Minu whispered, but I'm unconscious. Jungkook shoved him gently against the vehicle while unlocking it. The back door opened. Leather seats, medical kit, 2 burner phones, a folded knife, cash. Jimin stared. You live like a criminal. Minu managed a faint smile. I am one. They pushed him into the back seat. Jungkook slid into the driver's seat. Jimin froze outside the passenger door. What now? Jungkook looked at him coldly. Get in or stay with the police. Jimin climbed in immediately. The SUV tore out of the alley just as patrol cars swarmed the front of the building. No one spoke for 2 minutes. Only Minu's ragged breathing filled the cabin. Jimin twisted around in his seat, pressing gauze to Minu's wound. This isn't enough, he needs stitches. He needs silence, Minu murmured with eyes closed. He needs blood, Jimin snapped. Still have some. Jungkook drove through side streets, jaw clenched. Where are we going? Jimin asked. Minu answered first. Warehouse District, Pier 9. Jimin stared at him. You're conscious enough to give directions, but not to hold your own wound. I delegate. You're unbearable. Yet memorable. Jungkook slammed the steering wheel once. Enough. Both men fell quiet. His voice dropped lower. I have spent one night learning I have a brother, nearly dying twice, discovering your father might be alive under rubble, and driving a bleeding psychopath through the city, so nobody speaks unless it matters. Silent. 10 seconds later Minu said, take the next left. Jungkook nearly swerved from rage. They reached Pier 9 20 minutes later. The waterfront was deserted except for stacked cargo containers and the hiss of rain on metal. A rusted warehouse stood at the end of the pier, its windows boarded. Jungkook killed the engine. This place looks condemned. It is, Minu said weakly, which keeps rent low. Jimin stared at him. You own a condemned warehouse. I own several. Why? Trauma diversifies assets. Even Jungkook almost smiled. Inside, the warehouse was unexpectedly clean. Industrial lights flickered on one row at a time as Minu tapped a code into a wall panel. There were shelves of supplies, weapons lockers, a kitchen, surveillance monitors, and in one corner, a surprisingly elegant leather couch. Jimin looked around in disbelief. This is either a hideout or a therapy cry for help. Both, Minu said. Then he collapsed again. They got him onto a steel table. Jimin ripped open the medical kit. I need alcohol, thread, tweezers. Jungkook handed items over. You know how to do this. No. Then why are you saying it confidently? Because panic is unattractive. Jungkook stared. That sentence alone should get you banned from medicine. Jimin's hands trembled as he cut Minu's shirt open. The wound was ugly. Bullet creased through the side, deep but not lodged. Jimin exhaled shakily. Lucky. Minu opened one eye. I'm rarely lucky. Jimin poured alcohol. Minu grabbed Jungkook's wrist hard enough to bruise. If he says this will sting, hit him. Jimin said this will sting. Jungkook almost did. Minu bit down on a towel as Jimin cleaned the wound. Even through pain, Minu made almost no sound. Jungkook watched closely. You don't react much. Minu's jaw tightened around the towel. When pain is childhood furniture, he muttered, you stop noticing it. Jimin paused. For once, no sarcastic answer came. He stitched carefully. The room settled into strange quiet, broken only by rain hitting the roof. Jungkook wandered to the surveillance monitors. Multiple camera feeds showed the pier, surrounding roads, interior corridors. One screen displayed news coverage of the apartment explosion. Reporters speaking under umbrellas, police tape, fire crews. Then a familiar face appeared. Jungkook froze. An older man in a dark coat, escorted by police, alive and limping. Jimin's father. Jungkook turned sharply. He lived. Jimin's needle slipped, Minu hissed. What? Jimin rushed to the monitor. The reporter's voice was muted, but the image said enough. The older man was speaking to detectives with practiced dignity. Jimin looked sick. He'll make himself the victim. Minu laughed painfully. He'll make himself a donor. Jungkook's eyes narrowed. He'll blame us. Yes, Minu said, and he'll be believed until inconvenient. Jimin backed away from the screen. I know how he works. No, Minu said, sitting up despite the pain. You know how he worked on you. Jimin glared. Do not start. I haven't started, I'm warming up. Jungkook turned. Then start with something useful. How do we destroy him? Minu and Jimin both looked at him. The question had changed the room. Jungkook noticed it himself. Not stop him. Destroy him. Jimin spoke softly. That sounds like him. He nodded toward Minu. Jungkook didn't blink. Maybe blood travels fast. Minu smirked. There he is. Jimin set the supplies down hard. No, absolutely not. Both brothers looked at him. Jimin stepped forward, eyes blazing. I know what both of you become when angry. One turns cold, one turns reckless. Together you'll burn everything. Jungkook folded his arms. And your plan? We expose him legally. Minu barked a laugh. Adorable. Jimin ignored him. We find records, witnesses, the network. We force daylight onto him. Daylight can be bribed, Minu said. Not all of it. Enough of it. Jungkook looked between them. Do either of you have proof left? Silence. Then Minu slowly stood and walked to a locked cabinet. He entered another code. Inside were files, hard drives, old ledgers, passports, stacks of cash. Jimin stared. You had evidence this whole time. I had leverage. You unbelievable snake. Thank you. Jungkook grabbed a file and opened it. Transfers, names, judges, construction firms, police officers, shell companies. His hands tightened. This could bury dozens of people. Minu nodded, which is why it must be used correctly. Jimin stepped closer. Why didn't you hand this to authorities? Menu looked at him like the question was childish. Because authorities are in folder 3. Jimin opened folder 3. His face drained of color. Inside were photographs of officers taking envelopes. He whispered, "Oh." Menu took a slow breath. Now you understand the architecture. Jungkook kept flipping pages until one photo stopped him cold. His father, shaking hands with Jimin's father outside a courthouse. Date stamped 6 years ago. Jungkook's throat tightened. He was alive then. Yes, Minu said. You knew? Yes. Jungkook lunged. He slammed Minu against the cabinet, forearm across his throat. Jimin shouted, Jungkook. You knew he was alive. Minu did not fight back immediately. I knew where he stood in one photograph. Do you let me mourn a living man? Minu's eyes hardened. And when I found him later, I watched him die. We both lost something. That doesn't answer me. Minu shoved him off suddenly with explosive force despite the wound. You want confession? Fine, he shouted. I hated that you still hoped. The words hit harder than violence. Jungkook froze. Minu's chest heaved. I hated that someone in this family still believed father's return. No one moved. Jimin's voice broke the silence. You don't hate him. Menu looked away. You hate the part of yourself that wanted the same thing. Minu's fist smashed into the cabinet door. Metal dented inward. Stop understanding me, he said quietly. Jimin stepped closer. Then stop making it easy. The tension cracked in an entirely different direction. Jungkook stared at Jimin. You flirt with danger in every language. Jimin blinked. What? You two have been trying to stab each other for hours. Minu said dryly, for me that is flirting. Jimin's jaw dropped. This family is diseased. A burner phone on the table began vibrating. All three turned. Minu glanced at the number and went still. Who is it? Jungkook asked. Minu answered without humor. Our dead father. He put it on speaker. The older man's voice came smooth and amused. You disappoint me. I expected more distance after attempted murder. Jimin clenched his fists. You framed us. I narrated events attractively. Minu's eyes became knives. What do you want? A trade? No. You haven't heard it. No. The older man chuckled. Then hear this first. A muffled cry sounded through the phone. Female. Weak. Jungkook's blood ran cold. Then a voice he had not heard in years. Jungkook. He stopped breathing. His mother had been dead for 3 years. Yet the voice was hers. Jimin staggered backward. That's impossible. Jungkook grabbed the phone. Who is this? Soft sobbing answered. Then the voice again, trembling. Please help me. Minu snatched the phone and cut the call. Silence crushed the room. Jungkook stared at him in fury. What did you do? I stopped him controlling the room. That was my mother's voice. No, Minu said sharply, that was bait. Jungkook shoved him hard. You don't know that. Minu shoved back harder. I know men like him better than grief does. Jungkook swung. Minu blocked. They crashed into shelves, files raining down. Jimin screamed, stop it. Jungkook punched Minu's shoulder wound deliberately. Minu roared and tackled him to the ground. They rolled across papers and broken folders like animals. Jimin grabbed a metal tray and slammed it onto the table. The bang shocked them apart. Enough. Both men looked up. Jimin was shaking with rage. If that was fake, we verify it. If it was real, we save her. But if you two keep tearing each other apart, he wins before sunrise. Breathing hard, Jungkook slowly stood. Minu wiped blood from his reopened wound. Jimin's voice lowered. We need facts. He picked up the phone and examined it. Then looked at Minu. Can you trace calls? Minu smirked despite everything. Now you're speaking attractively. Jimin rolled his eyes. Can you? Yes. How long? 2 minutes. Jungkook stepped forward, eyes burning. And if that voice is really her? Minu met his gaze. Then tonight gets even worse. Warehouse felt smaller after the call. Rain pounded the metal roof in hard, relentless bursts. Water slid down the high windows in silver streaks. Somewhere deep in the building, an old pipe knocked every few seconds like a nervous heartbeat. Minu sat at a steel desk lined with monitors, one hand pressed to his stitched side, the other moving fast across a keyboard. His face had gone pale again, but his focus was brutal and steady. Jimin stood beside him, arms folded tightly across his chest, as if holding himself together by force. Jungkook could not stand still. He paced the concrete floor in short, violent lines, turning every few seconds toward the burner phone on the table like it might ring again and answer everything. My mother died, he said for the 3rd time. I buried her. No one answered immediately. I saw the coffin. Still silent. I signed papers. Minu finally spoke without looking up. You signed what someone placed in front of you. Jungkook snapped. You think grief makes people stupid? No, Minu said coolly. I think grief makes people obedient. Jungkook took 2 fast steps toward him. Say that again. Minu turned in the chair slowly. I think when people are broken, they stop asking who benefits. Jimin stepped between them automatically. Enough. Jungkook's chest rose sharply. Move. No. Move, Jimin. No. There was no fear in Jimin's voice now, only exhaustion and something harder underneath it. You hit him again, I hit you. Jungkook stared at him. With what courage? Jimin held his gaze. The kind pain accidentally built. The 2 men locked eyes for a long second. Then Jungkook turned away, jaw tight. Minu gave a faint, approving nod. Jimin noticed. Do not encourage him. I was encouraging you. That is somehow worse. Minu looked back to the screen. Trace is partial. What does that mean? Jungkook demanded. It means your dead not dead mystery mother, or our charming elder used signal masking. Speak human. It bounced through 3 towers and a private relay. Can you still locate it? Yes. When? Minu looked up. Now. He tapped a final key and rotated the monitor. A blinking point on a map near the harbor district. Old medical quarter. Abandoned St. Marian Hospital. Jimin frowned immediately. That place closed years ago. Exactly, Minu said. Jungkook was already reaching for his jacket. We go. Minu didn't move. We plan. We go. We plan, Minu repeated, voice sharper, because if he wanted only to speak, he'd call. If he wants us there, he prepared the room. Jungkook stepped closer. If that was my mother, I'm not waiting. And if it was? Jungkook's eyes burned. Then I break every bone in his body. Minu stood slowly despite the pain. You're thinking like me now. I don't know whether to be proud or worried. Jimin grabbed keys off the table. Both of you are impossible. We are going, but not blind. He walked to a supply shelf and began tossing items onto the table. Flashlights, zip ties, a first aid pouch, 2 knives. Jungkook raised an eyebrow. You keep knives in a trauma warehouse. Jimin pointed at Minu. He keeps bombs, adjust your standards. Minu smirked faintly. You adapt quickly. Jimin glared. I hate that I'm getting used to you. That's how most addictions begin. Jimin looked offended and confused at the same time. Jungkook rubbed his temple. I cannot believe this is my family. Minu picked up a handgun and checked the magazine. You're just resisting style. They left 5 minutes later. The roads toward the old medical quarter were nearly empty. Rain and late hour had washed the city into shadow. Streetlights flickered through mist. Stray dogs moved between alleys like ghosts. Jungkook drove this time without argument. Minu sat in the passenger seat, gun in lap. Jimin in the back seat checked the flashlight batteries. No one spoke for several blocks. Then Jimin said quietly, "If your mother is alive." Jungkook gripped the wheel tighter. "Don't. I'm just saying if she is, she may not be who you remember." Jungkook's voice lowered dangerously. "Don't prepare me for pain before facts. I'm preparing you for reality. I've had enough reality." Minu glanced sideways. That sentence should be carved on our family crest. Jungkook almost smiled against his will and hated himself for it. They reached St. Marian Hospital just before 2 a.m. The building loomed above the street like a shipwreck made of concrete, windows boarded, entrance gates hanging open, ivy strangling the outer walls. A faded ambulance rusted near the side lot. Jimin whispered, "I hate this already." Minu looked at the upper floors. Good instinct. They entered through the emergency wing. The smell hit first. Mold, damp plaster, old chemicals, rust. Their flashlight beams cut through corridors lined with overturned wheelchairs and cracked tiles. Rainwater dripped through ceiling holes into metal trays left behind years ago. Ping, ping, ping. Every sound traveled too far. Jungkook called softly. "Mother." His own voice sounded wrong in the building. No answer. Minu motioned left. They moved toward a stairwell. Halfway there, a speaker crackled overhead. Then the older man's voice filled the corridor. "Welcome." Jimin closed his eyes. "Of course." The voice continued. "3 sons and not 1 bouquet. Manners really are dead." Jungkook shouted upward. "Show yourself." "Soon." Minu scanned the ceiling corners. "Cameras?" "Many?" Jimin asked. "At least 6. "Can you disable them?" "Yes." "Then why aren't you?" "Because I'd rather know where he wants us to look." The speaker hissed again. "2nd floor, pediatrics." Jungkook didn't wait. He ran for the stairs. "Idiot," Minu muttered, following. They burst onto the 2nd floor. The pediatric ward was frozen in abandonment. Painted animals still smiled from peeling walls. Tiny beds stood crooked in rooms with no mattresses. A mobile of stars rotated slowly in the draft. Jimin shivered. This is evil theater. At the end of the hall, one room glowed with warm yellow lights. Impossible light. They approached carefully. Inside, an old lamp sat beside a bed. And on the bed, facing away from them, sat a woman in a pale cardigan. Jungkook stopped breathing. The curve of the shoulders. The hair. The hands folded in her lap. "Mom." The figure turned slowly. It was her face. Older, thinner, but undeniably her face. Jimin covered his mouth. Even Minu froze. Tears sprang into Jungkook's eyes before thought could stop them. He stepped forward. "Mom." The woman smiled shakily. Jungkook. His knees nearly gave. He rushed to her. Minu shouted, "Wait." Too late. As Jungkook reached the bed, the woman's smile glitched. Her head tilted unnaturally. The skin at the jawline split. Mechanical servos whined. The face peeled sideways. A hyperrealistic mask dropped onto the blanket. Underneath was a female mannequin head mounted on a metal frame. Jungkook stumbled back in horror. The eye's glass lenses continued blinking. The speaker system erupted with laughter. Jimin shouted, "You sick bastard." Jungkook grabbed the mannequin and hurled it into the wall. It shattered into plastic and wires. His chest heaved violently. Minu's face had gone murderous. He studied grief, he said quietly, to weaponize it. The laughter stopped. Then applause echoed from somewhere above. A slow clap. The older man's voice returned. "Excellent reaction." Jungkook roared. "I'll kill you." "I know, third floor surgery wing." Gunfire cracked suddenly from the far hall. They dove. Bullets tore through the room's glass and wood. Minu fired back instantly, 2 controlled shots. Down. Jimin crawled behind a cabinet. "Who shoots in a haunted hospital?" "Professionals," Minu answered. Jungkook, shaking with rage, snatched a metal IV pole and charged into the hall. "Jungkook," Jimin yelled. Too late. He swung the pole into the first gunman's wrist. Bone cracked, the weapon flew. Jungkook rammed the pole into the man's stomach, then smashed him against the wall. Second gunman appeared from a doorway. Minu shot the light above him, plunging the hall into darkness, then moved through shadow and struck the man behind the ear with the pistol grip. Both guards dropped. Jimin emerged pale. "One day," he said breathlessly, "I would like a normal evening." "No," Minu said, "you wouldn't." They took the stairs again. Third floor surgery wing. Double doors hanging open. Inside, operating theaters sat dark beneath cracked glass observation booths. At the center of the main theater stood a single chair under surgical lights. Tied to it was a man with a hood over his head. Jimin froze. "No." He ran forward and tore off the hood. "Mr. Han." The old night guard from Jimin's apartment building. Bruised but alive. He gasped for air. "They took me basement, more men." Jimin untied him quickly. "Can you walk?" "Yes, yes." The speaker crackled. "Compassion, how refreshing." Minu looked upward. "Come down. Why, you came beautifully." Then another voice came through the speaker. "Weak. Real. Jungkook." Everything stopped again. No mechanical glitch. No distortion. Human breath between syllables. Jungkook's eyes widened. "Mom," soft crying answered. "Please." He turned in circles. "Where are you?" The older man spoke over her. "Sublevel morgue." Jimin whispered, horrified, "He brought someone." Minu's jaw clenched. "Or wants us to think so." Jungkook was already moving. "No more tricks." Minu grabbed his arm hard. "Listen to me. Let go. If that's her, charging in gets her killed. If it isn't, charging in gets you killed." Jungkook's voice broke with fury. "What if it's real?" Minu's grip tightened. "Then trust me for 60 seconds. Jungkook stared at him. Rain thundered outside. The surgical lights buzzed overhead. Jimin said softly, "Please." Something in Jungkook finally yielded. 60. Minu released him and turned to Jimin. "Find the power room." "What?" "He's using house speakers, kill main power." Jimin nodded and ran. Minu looked at Jungkook. When lights die, cameras die, panic begins. And then, Minu smiled without warmth. "We hunt our father in the dark." The entire hospital suddenly trembled. A deep metallic boom echoed from below. Then emergency alarms began screaming through every corridor. Minu's expression changed. "That," he said quietly, "was not my plan. The alarm ripped through the hospital like a living thing. Red emergency lights began spinning in the corridors, painting everything in pulses of blood and shadow. Metal doors somewhere below slammed shut one after another. The entire building groaned as if waking from years of decay. Jimin's footsteps stopped in the hallway. "What was that?" he shouted. Minu's eyes narrowed. "Containment locks. This place is abandoned." "Not abandoned enough." Jungkook grabbed Minu by the shirt. "My mother is down there." Minu shoved his hand off. "And now so is every trap." Another heavy clang echoed from beneath them. Mr. Han, still shaking in the operating room doorway, whispered. They were moving boxes, generators, men with masks. Jimin looked back. "You knew people were using this place." "I thought smugglers," the old man said weakly, "not devils." The alarms wailed louder. Jungkook started toward the stairwell. Minu blocked him. "Move." "No. I gave you 60 seconds." And the building changed. "I don't care." "I know," Minu snapped. "That's the problem." Jungkook swung first. The punch came fast, fueled by fear more than rage. Minu caught the wrist, twisted, and drove Jungkook into the wall. "You want to save her," Minu hissed. "Then stop behaving like an orphaned grenade." Jungkook rammed his shoulder into Minu's ribs, the wounded side. Minu cursed and released him. Jimin shoved between them. "Enough, if either of you touches the other again, I swear I'll side with the villain." Both men glared at him. Jimin glared back harder. "Good, now listen, we split intelligently." "No," Jungkook and Minu said together. Jimin pointed at Jungkook. "You go to the sublevel because no one can stop you anyway." Then he pointed at Minu. "You go with him because he'll die alone." Then he pointed to himself. "I cut the power and open whatever locks I can." Minu frowned. "You think this is a democracy?" "No," Jimin said, "I think this is triage." Jungkook was already moving. Minu muttered, "I hate that he's useful." Jimin shouted after them, "Try not to bond through violence." "We make no promises," Minu called back. They ran down the stairwell. Concrete steps spiraled into deeper darkness. Emergency lights flickered every few seconds. Water dripped from exposed pipes. Somewhere below came the distant rattle of machinery. Jungkook descended 2 steps at a time. Minu followed, one hand on the rail, breathing controlled but strained. "You're slowing down," Jungkook said without looking back. "You're noticing me, how tender. You're bleeding through your shirt. You're emotional through your personality." They reached the sublevel landing. A steel door marked morgue stood shut. A keypad beside it blinked red. Jungkook kicked the door. "Nothing." He kicked again. "Nothing." Minu moved him aside. "You solve every problem with your feet." "Move." Minu shot the keypad twice. Sparks burst. The lock clicked. Jungkook blinked. That was annoyingly effective. "I know." They entered. The morgue corridor was freezing. Rows of drawer units lined the walls. Their flashlight beams slid over metal handles and condensation. The smell of antiseptic battled rot and lost badly. At the far end, one room glowed. A woman sat inside on a chair, wrists tied. Head lowered. Dark hair over her face. Jungkook's entire body went still. "Mom." He walked forward slowly. Menu scanned the ceiling corners. "No cameras." "Good." "No," Minu said quietly. "Bad." Jungkook ignored him and entered the room. The woman lifted her head. It was not his mother. A stranger in her 50s, terrified, mouth taped shut. Jungkook stopped dead. She shook violently and pointed behind him. Minu shouted, "Down." Gunfire erupted through the glass wall. Bullets shredded the room. Jungkook tackled the woman to the floor. Minu returned fire from the doorway, using the frame as cover. Two masked men advanced down the corridor. Minu dropped one with a shot to the leg. The second rolled behind a drawer unit. Jungkook ripped the tape from the woman's mouth. "Who are you?" "Kleina," she sobbed. "They made me sit here. They said if I moved they'd kill my son." A small beep sounded beneath the chair. Minu's face changed instantly. "Move!" Jungkook dragged her away as Minu kicked the chair over. A bomb the size of a lunchbox was taped underneath. Timer 0012. Jungkook stared. "Can you disarm it?" "No time." "What do we do?" Minu grabbed the bomb, sprinted to an open body storage chamber, shoved it inside, and slammed the steel drawer shut. He dove behind the wall. The blast hit like a hammer. The drawer door blew off its tracks. Shrapnel screamed through the corridor. Lights burst. Smoke filled everything. Jungkook coughed, ears ringing. The woman screamed. Minu staggered up, blood running from a cut near his eyebrow. "You okay?" Jungkook shouted. "I've had worse Mondays." The surviving masked gunman emerged through smoke. Jungkook charged him barehanded. They crashed into the drawer units. The man swung a knife. Jungkook trapped the wrist, drove his forehead into the man's nose, then slammed him face first into steel until he dropped. Minu shot the wounded first gunman's weapon away. Questions later. Jungkook dragged the unconscious attacker upright. "Who sent you?" The man spat blood. "Your father." "Which one?" Minu asked dryly. The man laughed, then bit down on something hidden in his mouth. Foam formed instantly. Jimin's voice crackled from a wall speaker unexpectedly. "Guys, I found the control room and I hate everything." Jungkook looked up. "Jimin." "I routed one speaker line. Good news, I can hear parts of the building. Bad news, there are at least 8 more men moving." Minu grabbed the speaker grill. "Where is the old man?" "Static." Then Jimin's voice lowered. "I think top floor chapel." Jungkook frowned. "There's a chapel." "In a hospital," Jimin snapped through static. Apparently trauma came with religion. Another voice suddenly replaced his. Slow, amused. "Very clever, son." Jimin inhaled sharply, somewhere far away. "Father, you always were brightest when desperate." Minu swore he found him. Jungkook slammed the speaker. "Jimin." The older man continued calmly. "Come to the chapel, all of you. Bring my eldest if he still limps." Minu's jaw clenched. "Do not call me that. Then earn a different title." The line cut. Jungkook was already moving back to the stairs. The rescued woman grabbed his sleeve. "Please don't leave me." He looked at Minu. Minu sighed. "I'll lock you in cold storage, safest room here." She stared in horror. "It's empty now," he added. "That does not help," she cried. Jungkook almost laughed despite himself. They secured her in an office near the stairwell and climbed. 3rd floor. 4th. 5th. Each level darker than the last. The alarms had become intermittent now, as if the building itself were tiring. At the 6th floor landing, they found blood on the wall. "Fresh." "Jimin's." Jungkook knew because a strip of Jimin's torn shirt lay beside it. He picked it up. His voice changed. "He's hurt." Minu looked once, then kept climbing faster. That surprised Jungkook. "You care?" Minu didn't turn. "I hate inefficiency." "You're a terrible liar." "I'm an excellent liar, that's how you know I care." They reached the top floor chapel. Double wooden doors stood open. Candles burned along the aisle, though no one had lit them recently enough to explain it. Rain hammered stained glass windows depicting saints with broken faces. At the altar, Jimin knelt with his hands zip-tied behind him. Blood at his lip. His father stood beside him in a dark coat, holding a pistol lightly as if it were a pen. Two armed men flanked the pews. The older man smiled. There they are. Jungkook stepped forward. Let him go. Such confidence from someone constantly manipulated. Minu moved to Jungkook's side. You're running out of rooms. The older man shrugged. Then I'll inherit the street. Jimin looked up, breathing hard. Don't listen to him. His father struck him across the face with the pistol. Jungkook lunged. Minu caught him by the arm. Wait. Jungkook snarled. He hit him. Yes, and wants you angry. Jimin spat blood onto the chapel floor. You always loved performances, he told his father. The older man smiled down at him. I loved results. You loved control. Same thing. No, Jimin said. Control is what cowards call fear with better tailoring. One guard snorted before hiding it. The older man's eyes chilled. He aimed the gun at Jimin's head. Careful. Jimin laughed shakily. There he is, tiny beneath the suit. Jungkook whispered, Jimin, stop. No, Jimin said without looking at him. I'm done being careful around weak men. The older man pulled the trigger. Click. No bullet. He looked at the gun sharply. Minu smiled faintly. Should have checked your pocket after the stairwell. The older man reached for a backup weapon. Too late. Jungkook launched himself down the aisle. He crashed into one guard, stole the rifle, and swung it into the second man's jaw. Minu vaulted a pew and tackled the older man at the altar. Jimin threw himself sideways, chair and all. The chapel exploded into violence. Candles flew. Wood splintered. Glass shattered as a bullet punched through stained saints. Jungkook disarmed one guard and punched him unconscious. The second guard grabbed him from behind. Jimin, still bound, charged shoulder first into the man's knees. They all collapsed. Minu and the older man fought savagely beside the altar, years of poison finally physical. The older man was older but efficient, striking throat, eyes, joints. You were never strong, Minu snarled. I trained stronger men than you, the older man shot back. He drove a blade from his sleeve into Minu's side. Minu gasped. Jungkook saw it and roared. He crossed the chapel and tackled the older man off Minu. They rolled down the altar steps. The pistol skidded beneath a pew. Jimin crawled after it, wrists still bound. The older man kicked Jungkook off and rose, bloodied and furious now. Enough. He seized Jimin by the hair and dragged him upright. The gun now in his own hand again, pressed to Jimin's temple. Everyone froze. Rain thundered through broken windows. The older man breathed hard. One more step and I redecorate. Jungkook stopped instantly. Minu, bleeding heavily, knelt by the altar. Jimin's face was pale but defiant. His father looked at Jungkook. Choose. Jungkook's pulse hammered. What? Your mother or him? The room went still. The older man smiled. Yes, your mother lives, lower wing ambulance tunnel, drugged, hidden, terrified. Jungkook's voice cracked. You're lying. Perhaps, but if you come for him, she dies waiting. If you run for her, he dies here. Jimin shut his eyes. No. Minu looked at Jungkook with blood on his mouth. Don't believe him. The older man pressed the gun harder. 10 seconds. Jungkook couldn't breathe. His mother. Jimin. Truth or trap? Love or blood? 10, the older man said. Rain pounded. 9. Jimin whispered, go find her. 8. Minu spat blood, he's bluffing. 7. Jimin looked at Jungkook, tears in his eyes. Please. 6. Jungkook took one shaking step backward. 5. Then Minu laughed. Everyone looked at him. He smiled through blood and pain. You still count like a man who needs permission. The older man's face hardened. That tiny distraction was enough. Jimin stamped backward on his father's foot, threw his head into the man's nose, and twisted sideways. The gun fired. The shot hit the stained glass. Jungkook moved before the shattered glass finished falling. He crossed the chapel aisle in a blur of rage and fear, drove his shoulder into the older man's chest, and sent both of them crashing through the first row of pews. Wood splintered beneath their weight. The gun flew across the floor. Jimin fell hard beside the altar, wrists still bound, gasping for breath. Minu, pale and bleeding, forced himself upright with one hand braced on the broken steps. The older man struck Jungkook in the throat, rolled free, and lunged toward the fallen weapon. Minu saw it first. No! He grabbed a brass candle stand from beside the altar and hurled it with the last strength in his body. The heavy metal rod spun once through the red emergency light and struck the older man across the temple. He collapsed to one knee. Jungkook tackled him again. This time there was no hesitation, no confusion, no demand for answers. Years of grief, betrayal, false grave, stolen childhoods, and manipulated love all converged in the force of Jungkook's fists. The older man tried to smile through blood. You hit like your father. Jungkook stopped only long enough to answer. No. He seized the man by the collar and held him there. I hit like your consequences. Then he drove one final punch into the man's jaw. The older man went limp. Silence rushed into the chapel. Rain battered the broken windows, candles guttered on the floor. Somewhere below, alarms still moaned through the hospital halls like tired ghosts. Jungkook stayed over the unconscious body for several seconds, chest heaving, hands shaking. Then he looked up. Jimin was trying to cut the zip ties on a shard of wood. Jungkook rushed to him and snapped them loose with trembling hands. The moment Jimin's wrists were free, neither of them spoke. They simply stared at each other through blood, tears, exhaustion, and too many unfinished wounds. Jimin's voice came out raw. You should have gone. I know. Why didn't you? Jungkook swallowed hard. Because if I lost you while chasing another maybe, I'd never forgive myself. Jimin broke completely then. Tears spilled down his face as he laughed once through them. That was a terrible confession. It was honest. That's worse. Jungkook pulled him into a fierce embrace. Jimin clutched the back of his shirt like someone rescued from drowning. Across the chapel, Minu sank down against a pew and watched them with unreadable eyes. Jungkook released Jimin and immediately crossed to him. You're bleeding too much. Minu glanced down. That seems statistically true. Stay awake. You say that like I obey people. Jungkook crouched in front of him. You obey me tonight. Minu studied him for a long moment. Then very quietly he said, that sounded like a brother. Jungkook's throat tightened. Get used to it. Minu smiled faintly, then winced from the pain. Jimin knelt beside them. We still don't know if he lied about your mother. Jungkook looked back at the unconscious older man. We make him tell us. No need. The weak voice came from the chapel doorway. All three turned sharply. A woman stood there, holding the frame for balance. Thin, pale, wrapped in an old hospital blanket, hair streaked with grey, eyes filled with disbelief and years. Jungkook forgot how to breathe. His knees nearly gave way. Mom! She stared at him as if memorizing every line of his face. Then she began to cry. Jungkook! He crossed the room slowly at first, then all at once. When he reached her, he dropped to his knees and held her so tightly he shook. She touched his hair, his cheeks, his shoulders, as if confirming he was real. I'm sorry, she whispered again and again. I'm sorry. He could barely speak. They said you died. I know. Why? She closed her eyes. He kept me hidden after the funeral arrangement. Your father tried to expose him. When your father vanished, I tried to run. He found me first. Jimin covered his mouth. Minu looked away toward the broken, stained glass. Jungkook held her hands. All these years. I counted every birthday, she whispered. Every winter, every spring, I never stopped. He wept openly then, the kind of grief that heals only by leaving the body. Police sirens rose outside. Blue lights flashed through the chapel windows. Jimin stood. We don't have much time. Minu looked at the unconscious older man. Leave him for the police. Jimin blinked, that's simple. No, Minu said, that's satisfying. They moved quickly. Jimin helped Jungkook's mother down the stairs while Jungkook supported Minu. For once, Minu accepted help without sarcasm. At the ambulance tunnel below, officers flooded the corridor with weapons drawn. Hands where we can see them. Jungkook raised his hands slowly. Behind him, his mother stepped into the light. One detective froze. Then another recognized the older man's face as officers dragged him in handcuffs from above, conscious now and shouting legal threats no one cared about anymore. The next weeks shattered the city. Files from Minu's warehouse, testimony from survivors, hospital footage, bank transfers, hidden properties, and old recordings tore through the networks of corruption. Judges resigned, officers were arrested, companies collapsed overnight, names once untouchable became headlines. Jimin testified against his own father. He did it with shaking hands and an unshaking voice. Minu vanished for 12 days after surgery. Then returned to the warehouse carrying groceries and refusing to explain where he'd been. Jungkook's mother moved into a quiet apartment with sunlight in every room. She spent hours relearning ordinary things, markets, television, parks, choosing her own tea. Sometimes she would stop mid-conversation and cry, because freedom can overwhelm as much as imprisonment. Jungkook cried with her the first time. Months later, on a clear evening, the three men stood on the warehouse roof overlooking the river. The city lights shimmered on dark water. Jimin handed out paper cups of coffee. Minu inspected his. This is terrible. You're welcome, Jimin said. Jungkook leaned on the railing. You know, normal families play cards. Normal families are boring, Minu replied. Jimin snorted, we nearly died 6 times. 7, Minu corrected. Jungkook looked at him. You counted. I count everything. There was a pause, then laughter, real laughter this time, unforced and surprised. Wind moved softly across the roof. Jungkook glanced at the 2 men beside him. One had lied to protect him and nearly lost himself in guilt. One had been forged by cruelty and still learned how to stay. Neither was easy. Neither was simple. Neither was leaving. He looked out at the city and felt, for the first time in years, that silence no longer meant something missing. It meant peace. His mother was alive. The truth was no longer buried. And in the strange wreckage of everything broken, he had found a family after all.